Look at some statistics. Use the empirical rule to determine between which two values does 95% of the data fall between when we are given a mean, the symbol here is mean, 52, and standard deviation of 14. We're looking at the empirical rule when the data falls into the normal distribution. So we have, let's just draw out the curve here. So if we have the normal distribution, that means that the mean falls in the middle. And then what the empirical rule says is that if we go one standard deviation below and one standard deviation above the mean, so let me try to make this as clean as possible here. So one standard deviation below and one standard deviation above, then what the empirical rule says is that 68% of the data fall between one standard deviation above and below of the mean. So the mean's right in the middle, and then 68% of the data is going to fall between one standard deviation above and below. And then we go two standard deviations below and two standard deviations above the mean. Empirical rule says that 95% of the data is between two standard deviations. And this is like really like roughly 95%. I think there's some like little decimals tacked on there, but it's about 95. And then if we go three standard deviations below and three standard deviations above, the empirical rule then says, that's a really bad line. The empirical rule says that we have 99.7% of the data. I'll put a little approximately here. 99% of the data is going to fall between three standard deviations. Normal distribution is when we're looking at very large populations, and good examples are like if you were to take the average height of all the males in the nation, or even just like within cities, or just like, doesn't have to be millions of people, but if you just take large populations and you take averages, like the average height or something, the mean will be right in the middle, and then we will have this normal distribution take shape. If you take all the SAT scores of a very large high school or ACT scores of a large high school, those results will form this normal distribution, and then you can make some sort of analysis from there. Like when you get results back saying that you are placed into a certain percentile, like that's based on the normal distribution. So in this question, we're given the mean of 52. So we're given the mean is 52, so that means that middle value is 52. And the standard deviation is 14. And the question is asking between which two values does 95% of the data fall between? So if 95% of the data fall between which two amounts of standard deviation? So it's two standard deviations below and two standard deviations above. So what we want to know is we want to know what would be the value two standard deviations below and two standard deviations above the mean. So if the mean's 52 and we want standard deviation of 54, standard deviation of 14, we're going to do 52 minus 2 times 14, and we're going to do 52 plus 2 times 14. And you can get the whole distribution, like you can easily just do for like one standard deviation. So this is for two standard deviations, but for one standard deviation, you could just do 52 minus, if you want to do 1 times 14, and 52 plus 1 times 14, just to get an understanding. And then three standard deviations would be 52 minus 3 times the standard deviation of 14, 52 plus 3 times the standard deviation of 14. And then you could answer pretty much any question from there after you get those values. But the specific question in this video here is asking for two standard deviations below and two standard deviations above. So I would do 52 minus 2 times 14, which is going to be 24. And then 52 plus 2 times 14, which is going to be 80. So two standard deviations below would be 24. Two standard deviations above would be 80. That would be the answer to this specific question. And again, you can answer a lot of different questions. Like if we're asking 99% or 99.7% or 68%, even like what about two standard deviations above? Like what would the actual percentage amount be two standard deviations above, or from here? Like any potential question can pretty much be answered from this point on after you get these increments of what is one standard deviation below, three standard deviations above, and so on. But just understanding though the concept of the mean is in the middle, and then we just work our way out of 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, and 3 standard deviations. Empirical rule is really, really important in statistics, the normal distribution, so something that definitely should be mastered.